not every craftsman who has the privilege of drinking beer in the boss's time. But here is one who has. For the master glassblower, because of the rigors of his craft and an old tradition in the trade, is permitted this pleasant way of slaking his thirst during working hours and preserving what bankers and accountants call liquidity. And he certainly merits this unique and ancient dispensation. For glassmaking is very hot work indeed. The furnace temperature, for instance, is in the neighborhood of 1,400 degrees centigrade. And although the molten glass is slightly cooler when the blower gets to work on it, it is still several times as hot as comfort. It looks easy, but then so does playing the trumpet, and this Louis Armstrong delicacy of touch is the result of long, dedicated years. Glassmaking is a many-sided and complex operation, and the work of many hands goes to the making of each single piece. Glass comes in all shapes and sizes, and we even look through it to look at it. It is part of our daily lives, and it has 1,000 uses. We just can't get away from glass. It's everywhere about us. Indeed, it might be said with truth that even the oldest of us are still reared on the bottle. And glass is always useful to men who, like our master blower, but perhaps with a less valid reason, are anxious to maintain their liquidity. Here is the aristocrat of glasses, lead crystal glass that combines utility and beauty, that serves a purpose but is not limited by the purpose it serves. Glass like this is the result of meticulous craftsmanship, and the skill that goes to the making of it is a very old one indeed. Glass was made in Dublin from very early times. The craft had spread from Rome in the wake of the marching legions during the first centuries of the Christian era. In the 16th century, we find one George Long petitioning Queen Elizabeth for permission to manufacture glass in Dublin and, saying nothing about his own expected profits, pointing out that Her Majesty would derive considerable revenue in customs duties on the new industry. How this petition fared is not recorded, but by the 18th century, glassmaking was a well-established industry in Dublin, and there were several flourishing glass houses in the city. But it was in the city of Waterford that the making of Irish craft glass reached its greatest heights. Glass was made in Waterford as early as 1729. It was, even then, a thriving port, doing a brisk trade with England and the continent, but it was the factory established in 1783 by the Penrose brothers that made the name of Waterford lead crystal known the world over. The exquisite craft glass that earned for Waterford its name and its reputation was esteemed and sought after in places as far apart as Philadelphia and Istanbul. For it was glass with a difference. Glass that not only caught and held the light, but seemed even to intensify it. Glass that did strange and lovely things with candle flame and the sheen of burnished wood. The glassmakers of Waterford were concerned with beauty, but they did not overlook utility or human weakness. And one of their favorite designs was a three-ringed decanter that was kind to tipsy fingers and kept precious liquor from spilling. In 1851, the Waterford factory ceased production, and a tradition of superb craftsmanship seemed to have ended forever. But in 1951, exactly a century later, another glass factory was opened in Waterford, and this ancient city turned once again to the manufacture of lead crystal glass. The new Waterford glass, like the old, is a hand-tailored product, and many of the old tools, the blowing iron, the prunty, and the shears are still in use. Here is one of the skilled Waterford glassmakers at work. Having trimmed the edges of a jug, he returns it to the furnace before shaping the rim. To the untrained eye, all this seems casual and routine, but it is craftsmanship of a high order, and skill like this is not acquired in a day. The placing and shaping of the handle is more like magic than craftsmanship. The curl of molten glass seems to fall into place of its own accord, taking its delicate ear shape as if it had been destined for it from the beginning of time. The batch, as the glass mixture is called, is heated in the furnace for roughly 36 hours before it is ready for working. Then some of the mixture is taken from the furnace on a blowing iron, and the blower gets to work on the glowing, viscous glass. Blowing and shaping, shaping and blowing. This is the birth of a piece of crystal glass. It's still in the rough and much remains to be done, but already we begin to see the shape of things to come. Every stage in the manufacture of lead crystal glass involves specialist operations in which the skill of the operator is equaled by the speed with which he works. And every piece is unique. Every piece receives separate and individual treatment. The component parts of each piece, too, are shaped and fashioned with sure artistry. This is work which, of its very nature, cannot be hurried. The machine plays a part in it, but the perfection at which it aims is not a mechanical perfection, and the things that matter are the design in the mind of the craftsman and the hands that give it material expression. The basic skills of this ancient craft have changed little with the years. New designs have been introduced to suit present-day needs, and electricity has replaced the old foot treadle, but there have been few radical changes in technique. Waterford glass contains a high proportion of lead, roughly 33%, and this helps to give it its characteristic weight and brilliance. After the glass has been cooled by a slow process known as annealing, it passes on to the cutting shop where decorative ornament is added. Many varieties of cuts are used, the hobnail, the diamond, and so on, and the patterns are followed freehand. This is what demands a sure eye, a firm hand, and the skill of the experienced and devoted craftsman. And it is slow, time-consuming work. For the same piece will be gone over time and time again with cuts of different depth and direction until the final composite design is completed. But these are not utility articles following one another in monotonous succession on a conveyor belt. Each is unique and different in a way that the mass-produced, machine-made articles can never be unique and different. And the men who fashion them with patience and skill strive for and attain beauty as surely as did the glassmakers of Rome and Venice when the world was very young. After they leave the cutting shop, some of the more elaborate pieces are engraved. In this exquisite type of decoration, which has been aptly described as sculpture on glass, a single design may take not hours or days, but weeks of work to complete. The engraver usually works from drawings or photographs, copying them with rare skill, but like every artist, adding something of himself, with the result that every piece of finished work is something new in nature, something that has never been before and can never be again, and as individual as an original oil painting. The modern Waterford lead crystal glass carries on an old tradition, but without any suggestion of the spurious antique. Its new patterns and shapes owe something to the old, but they are in no sense slavish imitations, and they are specially suited to modern needs. In our own time, mass production has brought a wealth of amenities within the reach of the many, but there is still a place for the art product. For there is a hunger in mankind for a beauty that is outside the gift of the machine, and that can be produced only by human hands and ancient skills, by patient craftsmanship and joy in making. This human need goes a long way towards explaining the perennial appeal of handmade lead crystal, which in this age of speed and restlessness has about it an atmosphere of timelessness and dignity, and is valued everywhere as a contribution to the arts of gracious living.